Testing 1 2 3. Okay, I yell a lot. Welcome. Thank you all for coming here today. What we're going to do is we're talking about election integrity. That is a big issue that's in the news right now. It's all over the place. I think it's become more and more timely, and I think something big may be coming. You know, my personal theory is, Trump and the administration is focused on the primary, on the midterm, and they want, obviously for us to have fair and free elections, right? So I think they're timing a lot of stuff that, will hopefully come to fruition. Hopefully the war's not interfering with it or what's going on over there. I also believe, there's some timing to some of that type of stuff too. So, but I think it's very important to kind of know what's going on. We've been pushing people on a lot of things, like even getting out there early voting, because that was, seen us losing early voting. We're trying to push some of that stuff too. Everybody I'm talking to is saying maybe we need to be a little more careful about that. So I understand their frustration. Our frustration is getting as many people to the polls as we can. I literally missed my voting in the presidential preference primary because I was waiting to vote day up, because I'm a day up kind of guy, and I was in the hospital, so I couldn't vote, in the presidential preference primary for Donald Trump. So don't think I voted for Nikki. But thanks to Scharr and Julie Baker. There are two kind of experts. What we have done here with the Greenville County Republican Party is we've just, there's no point in everybody having an election integrity committee. So what we have done is that as part of our group is we have even formally as a resolution, as one of the 7 legislative things that we're pushing is election integrity here in the state of South Carolina. And we have literally said our support goes to South Carolina safe elections. So we named them by name, and we want to support everything that they do. And we're here to support them and thank them for coming up today to kind of give us a brief and an update. And we're actually going to do a demonstration on how to do the hand count. And not to stop, one last thing, I always give the example. My wife is from Poland. They do elections on Sundays, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. People go to church, then go vote. Hand counted, paper ballots, single day voting. It works for 30 some odd million people. It can work for 300 million people here. So with that, I'll hand it over. Thank you.
I'm just going to set it up so you know what we're going to do today. So we thought we'd start by the wonderful Julie Baker talking about, she's a cybersecurity expert extraordinaire. She really has a lot of experience in this realm. And she's going to talk about why we cannot use electronic voting of any sort. And she's done a deep dive into multiple ways that we can potentially vote. And so basically that's going to start off. And then I'm going to talk about what's going on in the news, because Jeff is right. They're priming the pump. This is coming down. And it's gotten to the point where we've been told that in the meetings with Trump, people have come in and said, oh, I have a better way to vote. Let's do it this way. And he's literally screamed them out of the room and said, no, we're going to paper ballots. So we know this is coming, and we just don't know when, and we pray that it's as soon as possible. Peter Tichting, who's a good friend of President Trump, has said to him, listen, if we don't go to paper ballots and we don't fix this election, you're gonna be impeached, you're gonna be imprisoned. This is like serious stuff. So once again, just because Trump's in doesn't mean we fixed all the things that we need to fix. We need to do our job. So she's gonna talk about why we can't use electronic voting. I'm gonna talk about what's going on in the news. Then I'm gonna talk about what we've been up to very briefly, just to give you a sense of what the hard work we've done in the last 5 years. And we represent, by the way, this is not a me thing, a Julie thing, or a Laura thing, it's a we thing. We represent people across all the state that have worked really hard with our team to make your voice be counted. So we're just here representing the group. And then what we're gonna do after that is I'm gonna talk about what the solution is. Because we didn't just complain about elections, we developed solutions. and we optimize those solutions. And you guys are gonna have the opportunity to actually participate in a hand count training today to see how easy and fun it actually is. So with that, I will send it off to Julie Baker, cybersecurity expert extraordinaire.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, I am a cybersecurity expert. I have been working for over 30 years in cybersecurity, mostly on Wall Street in New York, for banks like Citigroup, TD Bank, Deutsche Bank, all the big banks. I even worked in Israel for about 4 years, setting up a cybersecurity innovation center. I am a retired Chief Information Security Officer, board member of the South Carolina Republican Assembly, and I am a member of SC Safe Elections. And I do want to talk to you today about why electronic voting sucks. Because it does, and we don't. I'm going to basically explain to you why we don't want it. Electronic voting, we mean anything where you're casting votes, counting votes, anything in between. It's a really bad idea. I'm going to remember to change the slide. Come on, I got you.
It's been hacked.
It's been hacked. It just takes a minute for it to. It seems like it changed the slide here. That's weird, but it did not change the slide here.
If not, I've got a slide.
You gotta find it. Oh, it should be working. But, well, that one's here. Let me just stop it. Start it again. Okay, and we'll try again. Maybe it just got stuck. It worked. Hold on. Cord. Doesn't work when you're on. 5 minutes. Okay, let's see. It's not that good. It got stuck. Computers for you, another reason why you don't want to use computers. Bad things happen. First issue that we want to talk about, I'm just using this as a backdrop, is complexity is the enemy of security. Does this look simple to you? No. So, voting systems, highly complex systems, basically, with all sorts of moving parts. Each part is a potential attack vector. They have also over 3 to 4 million lines of code just to count votes. Any developer, IT expert can tell you 3 to 4 million lines of code to count votes is just a little bit of overkill. So, to developers over there nodding their head. Yes, it's really not possible also to analyze that much code. AI could do it, but as far as I'm concerned, do you really want one black box testing out another black box? I also think part of it is that they make things deliberately complicated, basically, so that you really can't evaluate it. There is also a very serious tendency towards centralization. And anytime you move towards centralization in a voting system, to me, it's a bad idea because you want to keep your elections local as possible, and as much local control as possible. We've already seen in past years where we've had problems with federal involvement in our elections, from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency that was constantly monitoring us, the Federal Election Assistance Commission that sets all the standards and rules, and federal laws like CAVA, the Help America Vote Act. And the list goes on. That's not only that. But this happens at the state level too. South Carolina has a fully centralized voting system controlled by Columbia. Do you think that's a good idea? No. Then there's also the problem of fully outsourced election process. Our current voting systems are controlled by third parties. They're owned by third parties, basically. ES&S, Dominion, now Liberty Vote, Hardin or Civic, these are the 3 biggest, and they are all private equity owned. That means we don't know who owns them, we don't know who the investors are, and they don't have any, they're not foiable, we can't ask them for information, they don't have any requirement to give it to us. And these third parties use other third parties like Dominion using Serbian developers, which they didn't bother to disclose most of the time until we just found out. What are the risks from an almost fully outsourced process? Do we, again with this, just like centralization, do we still have local control of our elections? Next, these systems are very opaque. They are not transparent. Current voting systems are what we call black boxes. We have no access to the source code. We can't open the machines to see what's inside. We can't test them. And is there a cellular modem in that thing? Who knows? I don't know. And they don't, and certainly the election officials don't know. Essentially, we do not know what's happening under the hood. And they make it very difficult to get things like cast vote records, audit logs, and anything like that that would make it easier for us to understand kind of what's happening. So how can you trust what you can't see and what you can't audit? Lastly, electronic systems are very vulnerable. Software can be programmed to do just about anything, and it can be manipulated on the fly, and you would never, ever know. It is also inherently vulnerable. Developers write code, make mistakes, even AI writes code that has mistakes. And these mistakes become what we call vulnerabilities or weaknesses that can be exploited by bad guys to gain access to the systems and to the data, basically. And even supposedly air-gapped systems can be compromised via USBs that have malware on them. So electronic voting and using electronic systems to vote is, as far as I'm concerned, irredeemably bad. So I'm still gonna ask the question, is there any way this can be fixed? Because a lot of people are still asking these questions. There have been rumors that President Trump and Elon Musk have discussed the use of blockchain voting to address these risks. There's a mobile voting system that is being developed right now, and most recently, and interestingly, a lottery-style scratch-off ballot system. And can any of these things help fix these problems? So we're gonna start with blockchain, and hopefully you'll advance. Thank you. But with blockchain, I'm gonna start with this one. This is what's called a decentralized, meaning spread over lots of computers with no central authority, fully public and transparent, secure and immutable digital ledger. All that means is it keeps a record of all transactions or votes in this case, and it can't be changed and everyone can see everything. Sounds great, wonderful, you know? These are exactly what we want from an election integrity perspective from a voting system. You know, can't change it, it's visible to everybody, who wouldn't want this? But unfortunately, there's nothing new under the sun. And when you look at this picture, this is a blockchain ecosystem actually, because it's never just the blockchain. It is always the blockchain ecosystem, meaning there is all sorts of stuff, distributed applications, smart contracts, all these other types of software, off-chain infrastructure that is also part of this ecosystem. So you think that this is, you know, and this is all code. So all of this is also code. And it's vulnerable to attacks. And a lot of third parties own a lot of the other things as well. So a lot of third parties involved in that whole thing. You think it's transparent and you think it's decentralized? Not necessarily, because it's all in the implementation. It could be public, which is what it's supposed to be, the pure blockchain, or it can be private, or it can be a hybrid. It can be fully distributed, or it can be fully centralized. It can be permissioned, where you have only a few people who can see it, or permissionless, where everybody can write to it. But again, it's all code. So everything that you see there is either code or hardware with code, basically. And I can't even mention all of the real world attacks and examples. There's just too many of them. Successful attacks against blockchain systems, widely used by cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and other things, massive numbers of attacks. One of the more recent ones, the biggest ones, the Bybit attack, happened in February of 2025, $1.5 billion stolen. And I get daily notices, I still get notices about all the attacks and things, all the successful attacks. And the fact is, where the money is, the attackers will come, and where the votes are, the attackers will come, along with the nation states. So I don't really believe this is a real option for us. And then we have mobile voting, which also looks, so isn't that so simple? You know, so very simple system, not really, I'm being sarcastic, of course. But it would be lovely, I'm sure everybody would love to vote from their phones. This is actually being developed by a group funded by Tusk Philanthropies. And this is I think they're hoping to use this in the near future. I'll just give you a few highlights because there's not a huge amount of technical detail about it, but they claim to be nonpartisan. They are not nonpartisan, they are on the left. In their own words, they're not building a system that is more secure than the current systems. They're building ones just as secure as the current systems, which to me is like, that means absolutely not, if not very, which means not secure at all. The cryptography has strong ties to the NSA and DARPA, not to mention Microsoft. I think that's a good idea. I guess it depends who's in charge of NSA and DARPA at the time. You know, there are foreign third parties who are involved in development. A Danish company, I believe, is voting this. You think they've forgiven us for Greenville yet? It is every bit as complex as the current voting systems, if not more complicated. And they claim you can view your ballot all the way through the process, at least until those ballots get copied over to their air-gapped, quote-unquote, system for final printing and tallying. So, and even if they're displaying your ballot to you, you can go look at it. How do you know that's the one that's actually being tallied? You don't. But there's an even bigger kicker with this one. They mean it as a replacement for the current mail-in voting system that we are trying to get rid of. And I'm going to quote from their frequently asked questions. The technology we have developed mitigates the risk of voter fraud by following the same process used for mail-in voting. Do you think we have fraud with current mail-in voting systems? Yeah, exactly. If the answer is yes, then we don't want an electronic version of it, because that is a recipe for fraud at scale. So, on to the next one, which is redo voting. Now, this one actually has some very interesting points. It actually claims to fix all the problems with the other systems that we have. And I'm going to explain what it is. What you see on the screen is an actual example of a scratch-off card that they want us to use. They're kind of calling it a ballot. It's kind of a misnomer. It's not really a ballot. It's a means for you to, to vote, but I'll kind of explain how it works. They use the same high security printing technology that's used for lottery tickets. And there's lots of money at stake in lottery systems, so they have a lot of great security basically around the printing of these cards. Now, but again, these are not ballots. They're just a way for you to send your vote to a central repository. And from a voter perspective, this is actually quite a simple process. You go to a designated location to pick up a ballot, most likely an election office, but if it's like the lottery system, it could be a 7-Eleven, who knows? When you request a ballot, the clerk scratches off the gray square below the seal to reveal a barcode. The barcode is scanned by the clerk to activate the ballot. Your ID is then scanned using a credit card payment scanner. If you plan to vote remotely, you're prompted to create a 4-digit PIN. Huh?
You need an ID?
Oh, I know, it's shocking. Well, everything here is customizable. You don't have to have an ID.
Oh my God.
No, you don't. I mean, it depends on the state. But they have the capability of requesting an ID.
So in South Carolina, though, you have to have that.
Yes, in South Carolina we do, yes. So here, that's what we have. But now, after you do this, your scratch-off ballot's now tied to you. And even if you lose it, you could get another. And you can only have one active card at a time for a given election. And then you're handed your ballot, and you're pretty much ready to vote. And then when you get home, you need to go to the first gray square, the step 1 up there, you scratch it off, and then that's gonna reveal a QR code. You're gonna be directed, you scan that with your phone, and you are sent basically to a website where you're directed to enter your voter information and your PIN, basically. And these details are converted into what is called a one-way cryptographic hash. And that's just a digital fingerprint, basically, that can't be reversed. And this is stored in the state repository. And everything is encrypted end to end, meaning it becomes unreadable to anybody who even has access to the repository. On election day, after the polls open, you scratch off the second gray square to reveal the next QR code. And then it shows up, you go to that link, you follow the link, and then you go to vote, basically. All the races and candidates will be there, you make your selections and submit that. Your selections are again stored as a hashed record in the state repository. And again, everything is encrypted end to end. You can verify your vote with the review, the one that says review up there on the third step, basically. And you can actually even capture it and record it as a PDF. And you and only you can do your ballot and actually your choices. And at this point, it becomes everybody else would only see anonymized data. Only you can see your actual vote. That's the thing. So, and once you've used your ballot, your registration cannot be used again. It's for one-time use only. And then the fourth gray square is just it's reserved for poll workers. So if you want to go to a poll worker and ask them to validate your vote was actually cast, they can use that to validate that it was cast. And then once the polls close, the repository of ballots and actually your selections, because it's not really ballots. That's all. They use the term, they kind of use it interchangeably and call them ballots, but it's not really a ballot. It's your selections stored there. They're decrypted after the polls close by an election official with a key, and the votes are counted. And this can all be monitored in real time. In addition to the election count, anybody with repository access can also do a count at the same time using their own methodology. That's actually quite an interesting thing, because then you can actually claim it's all mathematically provable, and it's, everything is verifiable, everybody can watch it, fully transparent. So this means our election problems are solved, right? This is the perfect system. So, fully auditable and transparent, simple for the voter at least. Hashing and encryption make it unhackable, and that's their terms, not mine. Code is even fully open source and public, so of course it has no vulnerabilities, it's fully security tested, and it's just a repository really of anonymized voting data, very simple. And guess what? It's cheaper. So traditional elections cost between $22 and $47 per voter. Redo says they can do it for $5 a voter. You think our legislators would be interested in that if it was cheaper? South Dakota already tried to adopt it, and it has gone back for further study, but I have no doubt that this thing will make a reappearance. But as with blockchain and mobile voting, and even our current electronic voting, the devil is in the details. And that's kind of what I want to go through with you a little bit. I think I put another, yeah, there we go. So this is actually, AI made this one for me. So it made a couple of mistakes, as it usually does, but I figured you guys wouldn't care. But it's kind of a cute little drawing. Redo makes voting sound effortless. It's really like scratch off card, you scan a QR code, you go vote, really simple. But behind it is this extremely complicated electronic system. Servers, database, encryption keys, hashes, barcodes, QR codes, and very specialized lottery technology, and no paper ballots as far as I can tell. So I want to review with you the system kind of to understand the company. We're going to start with the company. Redo is a private company, just like ES&S is. Only this one's actually privately owned. I don't think it's private equity owned, so it's not quite like ES&S. The founders keep kind of a low profile, except every now and then they'll make an appearance on a conservative media site like John Solomon. I think they're trying to get their street cred among the conservatives, but their website offers really very thin, documentation. So I've really done my best to try to understand what they're saying and what they're doing based on very minimal data, basically, because it's really hard to find anything about this thing, beyond what all the little happy little graphics that they publish on their website. By the way, their website has a certificate issue. Not really a great look for a security company. So, and it occurs to me also that as you look at redo voting, and even at the mobile voting, that if everyone is voting from their phone, and even though there is an option to vote in person with this system, that there's really no local control anymore over elections. There's no more voting with your neighbors, no more checks and balances that comes from that. It's just you and your computer and whoever and whatever is capturing and counting the votes. So that's something to think about. But anyway, let's move on to the unhackable claim. Lottery systems have never been hacked, is the implication. I'll get to that. Redo leans very heavily on the lottery system security controls, as well as their cryptographic controls, open sourcing their code. And open sourcing their code is good. It just means that everybody can review the code. It's publicly available. But just because code is publicly available does not mean it is perfectly secure. Because major repositories have been compromised before and continue to be. Open source repositories have been infiltrated by foreign actors like China. And open source code can still have malicious code embedded in it. There have been a number of really close calls that were very public, where this stuff, some of these really bad things went out, or almost went out. And I have the feeling some of them did actually make it out and had to be recalled. But I don't have specific examples of those. But and we know that security company, that the company is indicating that they're security testing their code, but they provide no details, which again is no different from ES&S, because they also are never forthcoming with the details on what they do from a security testing point. And every update they do introduces new vulnerabilities, and it really only takes 1 0 day to destroy an election. 1 0 day. A 0 day is a previously unknown vulnerability, and it means that the company now, because it's now public, has 0 days to fix it, because it's out there already, and probably being actively exploited. 0 days are probably the most dangerous vulnerabilities of all, except of course for the ones you don't actually know about, so at all, which are still yet to be revealed. And what about encryption? Does that make it fully secure? They say they use government-grade encryption, but don't tell us what the algorithms are in use, how the keys are created, exchanged, or stored, or who has access to them. Strong encryption means very little if your key management is weak, because it's the keys that unlock the data. So again, the devil's in the details, and they are not forthcoming with these details. So transparency continues to be an issue. And then you have the state-run digital repository where all the votes end up. This is what we call a single point of failure. And we know almost nothing from a technology or security perspective about the state repos. And do we trust our state IT department to properly secure this critical repo? No. Not necessarily. But of course, maybe the third party is managing the repo, and I'm not sure I would be any happier with that. So if someone gets into that repository, there is a potential for great damage to the ton of the voting data, and even for bad people to know the results in advance if they're able to compromise the keys. the attacker doesn't necessarily need to change votes or delete votes even though that's possible, they get access to the repo, to impact an election. Just knowing early results can help malicious votes, folks manufacture votes. That could change the results in an election. So we saw this in 2020 and other elections, and dirty voter rolls and fake Chinese driver's licenses don't just magically disappear because someone beefed up the cryptography. Chain of custody is also an issue. These scratch-off ballots could be shipped to election offices or retail stores. Could they be sent to a 7-Eleven in a blue state or a ridiculous state like ours? I don't know. Could shipments be intercepted and used to create fake votes with the help of a clerk or an official? And there are other points of attacks are actually just mistakes that could turn into attacks. Printing errors in current lottery systems, and there are lots of examples of these. Turning winners into losers and losers into winners. What could this mean in an election? Barcodes could be manipulated. Credit card scanners can be hacked like the Target. Insider collusion like the massive 2007 hot lotto fraud. So, and finally, how are votes counted? I don't know. I have the feeling they just leave it to the election officials to figure that part out. But they didn't say, they said, but anybody could download the data and calculate it themselves. So, I guess they figure everybody's doing it, so you hopefully all come up with the same results, but if you don't, they don't really have a description of what happens if it doesn't match. But the problem is, redo does claim, and also you still have the other problem about not knowing if the ballot you submitted is actually the one that's counted. They claim that the votes go in and none go out, mathematically verifiable via hashing, and that might be true, but it still doesn't answer that question entirely. But are we sure that's the one that's actually calculated? The one you see on the phone is the same one that's actually being counted, because they're not tracking the individual users, the individual group. So,
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What's hashing?
hashing is that digital fingerprint. It's basically, it's used as an integrity check. It's to make sure that the vote hasn't changed. That's the idea behind it.
Is that part of the code?
It's part of how they, it's just part of their, when you have the data, they basically hash it, they make it unreadable, and then send it off to the repository. And it's one way, meaning you can't ever reverse it, you can't ever read it. So, but it's meant more from a security perspective, it's meant more as an integrity check, meaning it's to make sure that the vote hasn't changed, that the data hasn't changed.
From you
From you to the
repository.
repository.
But yet you can go back and look at that vote.
But you can go back and look at the vote, yes. So it is a good, I actually do think that's a reasonable system, but again, if you do have limited, it doesn't solve all of the problems, it's only one aspect of it. It's an integrity check to make sure your vote hasn't changed. But it doesn't mean that that's the one that was counted.
Right.
So there needs to be an additional check to figure that part out. But we have part of the problem is that we just don't have any real answers about how this process works from a technical perspective, because they really are not, again, forthcoming with the details. You're sending ballot data over the internet. What could possibly go wrong? Without full transparency in the architecture and technical and security controls, it is still a black box, and we still don't know what's happening under the hood. And one last point about the unhackable claim is that there have been no successful attacks against lottery systems. That's what they claim. Reality check, yes, there have been. There have been a number of ransomware attacks that have impacted lottery systems in the last 2 to 3 years. It has not caused a loss of money as far as they're concerned, but this has happened to the Ohio Lottery, Rhode Island, US Virgin Islands. But ransomware isn't about manipulating voter data. What it does is it encrypts the data, and then the bad guys have sold the key hostage, because the key is what unlocks the data, and they expect a payment to give you back your data, give you back access to your data. And chances are the bad guys, and I'm telling you, this happens all the time in companies, they delete the backups as well, unless you've really done a good job at protecting the backups, all the time, ransomware, all the time. Once everything's encrypted, you have lost chain of custody. Who would trust an election where there's no chain of custody, or malicious actors have access to the data? But worse than that, if you don't pay the ransom and you don't decrypt, you can't decrypt the votes because you don't have the key, you're done. Election over, and there isn't even a paper backup that you can count. So there are a number of issues there, but this just basically to recap, I think that's my last slide. Electronic voting, bad news. Complex black boxes, vulnerable code, critical lack of transparency, voting processes and software that are third-party managed and developed, no local control. As I said at the beginning, nothing new under the sun, but something to think about. This is just from my own experience. Banks spend a gob on cybersecurity, and they expect fraud, and they budget millions for it, millions. They buy cyber insurance because breaches are inevitable. If that's the reality for billion-dollar banking institutions, what does that mean for elections? In elections, you get one shot. Blockchain voting, mobile voting, lottery system voting, current electronic systems all share the same weaknesses. Any one of these weaknesses has the potential to compromise an election. They're inherent to electronic voting. It cannot be 100% secure, and that can't be fixed. Not to mention that cheating at scale is only possible using computers to vote. And my question is, why would you use these vulnerable electronic systems when you have a truly unhackable system available to you that solves all these problems, which is hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots? So basically, my opinion is, nope. No to blockchain voting, no to mobile voting, no to scratch-off lottery cards, no to all forms of electronic voting, and yes to paper, yes to hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots. That's my opinion. So, there you go. Can you switch over this?
Okay, you can set my stuff up, right?
Yes, I'm gonna put that right up here. Okay. Should be up and running.
Great, so, thanks again, everybody, for coming today and giving us the gift of your time, because it means that you truly care about your state, about your country, and about your elections. Like I said, we represent a larger group across the state, South Carolina State Elections. We've been doing this for almost 6 years, and it's on our own time and our own dime, and our whole goal is to restore confidence in your vote, not just in South Carolina, but also in the United States. We work with a lot of other states to make sure that we have a better system than we have now. And so we'll talk about that today. See if I can advance, yay. Here is our website. I encourage you to go to this. News and blogs, we have all of our recent blogs and articles there. I encourage you to go to that. And then the gold standard elections is where we talk about our white paper, which I will also talk about today, and our toolkit for hand counting hand-marked paper ballots. There's just a treasure trove of information there. And if you see, it's not on this slide, but we do also have a way you can sign up to be a hand count volunteer on our front page website. What I thought we'd start off with was the hot news, and it feels like we're drinking from a fire hose lately. It's crazy, and there's purpose to that. Trump is priming the pump. We're seeing a lot of old news that's recycling now, right? And we're going, wait a second, I thought I heard that 5 years ago. Well, he's really getting everybody up. He wants us to get aware of the situation, so when he comes down and makes this edict, we're all ready for it. So let's talk about some of this news. Georgia, about a month ago, the FBI raided Fulton County. Did everybody hear about that?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened was they were able to preserve all the information from the 2020 election because they had ongoing legal battles. And so all that information was supposed to be in a certain warehouse. So they came and they removed over 700 boxes of physical ballots. That was on January 28th. Ballot images, tabulator tapes, voter rolls, and poll lists. So essentially all of the election materials for the 2020 election. And Tulsi Gabbard was there actually making sure that that happened. And what does that tell you? That there was some foreign component involved in this. Georgia, I've always said for 6 years, is where the dominoes are gonna fall. And in my opinion, yes, Trump did win Georgia. And part of the reason that they were able to go into Georgia, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, is through cast vote record analysis. As you may know, for years, we tried to get the cast vote records in South Carolina. Georgia was able to get them. They've always been available. And when they did the analysis, they found duplicate ballots. Just in one county, it was over 6,000.
Oh my God.
And Trump only lost by around 11,000. This is why I say Trump won Georgia. So that's what happened in Georgia, and we know that that's, the hammer's coming down on that. By the way, they were missing physical ballots and things like that from the inventory. Maricopa, they had to, it's actually interesting. There was a federal subpoena directed to their Arizona Senate in Maricopa. And they asked for audit records from the 2020 audit that they had conducted. And so they had to hand over all of those audit records. There's a lot of funky things going on there. So once again, they're analyzing that again. And it was from 2020 to 24, they're primarily focusing on 2020, but 24 as well. They're on it, like white on rice. Minnesota, my friends in Minnesota were able to uncover a fraud ring where there's a ringleader that was bringing in a number of Somalis with fake IDs. And this is a recent election, and they were voting in the recent election with the fake IDs, and they've given that to the authorities, and they are now investigating that. That was in the news over the last few months. The Save America Act, as we speak right now, it is in the Senate, and they are debating that act. It's a core component of what we would call the gold standard for elections, and that is voter ID, citizenship, and also maintenance of the voter rolls. Some sort of accountability for voter roll maintenance. As we stand here today, South Carolina has not given over our voter rolls to the DOJ. Even though we won in our state Supreme Court, we were supposed to give it over. So, and it's unfortunate, I can get into more.
that?
Our Senate actually is blocking it right now, Massey.
Do we want the federal government to have it like that?
We
They get
do.
under control?
We should.
Feels counterintuitive.
Well, because they have a database of the social security numbers, Department of Motor Vehicle information, but they can cross-check to determine who's a non-citizen.
But we do too at the state.
We don't do that. Well, some states use the HAV, it's HAVV, to check non-citizenships, and we don't do that right now.
So what if we did that instead of putting it to federal? Maybe federal
Yeah, that's an option for sure. But you do have to have layers of accountability. So if it's, whether it's our AG or their AG, there has to be some sort of database, data
I
sharing,
don't trust our
data
agency.
sharing.
Well, giving it to the federal government seems like the opposite of the whole idea, like we're trying to.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. We don't want to have too much federal overreach, but we do need accountability. So as long as the data is being shared, as long as there's accountability, I get what you're saying, maybe keep it local control. The other thing is, and I do believe, by the way, that the Save America Act, this is what Trump is waiting for. He's waiting to see if they're gonna pass it. And regardless of whether they do or not, he's gonna bring an executive order that is a national emergency authorization. It must be an emergency. If you just do an executive order, they can throw out the legal and muck it up. Has to be a national emergency, critical infrastructure, and it may have to be all of it if they don't pass Save America Act. If they do pass Save America Act, he'll still do some, I think, additional action. Hammer and scorecard, Trump had truth in the last month. And this is really excellent work from the American Report and journalist Mary Fanning. This is a special access program, Hammer and Scorecard. How many people have heard of Hammer and Scorecard? So Hammer was used to surveil. This was developed by Dennis Montgomery. It was part of our CIA. And yes.
Is this kind of like what Rick Makowitz did with Red Cell?
I don't think so.
So what that was during the nineties, they had a bunch of Navy SEALs, Navy SEAL Team 6, basically practice, they would do these infiltrations of our own base.
Oh, no,
So
that's,
they like they halo jump their own people into the White House. like
No.
stuff like that.
no, I don't think so. So this is something different. This is, computer surveillance. This is what they used against Trump to spy on him for many years. And then that's the hammer part. And the scorecard part is actually is getting into the system with prismatic algorithmic scoring and, flipping votes. So one is surveillance, one is actually manipulating votes. Scorecard is the manipulating votes. So Trump had truth that, hey, hammer scorecard was used to steal the 2020 election. And when actually Jeff O'Donnell, are you all familiar with Jeff O'Donnell? He's done a lot of work on the Casper records, and he's worked with Dennis Montgomery on this, and Mary Fanning from the American Report. When they looked at the detail of the IP addresses, they found that 20% of the IP addresses that were coming into our voting systems, our voter registrations in our states, were from a Chinese military base, a Marine base. 1 in 5. They also found additional infiltration from Fort Huachuca, which I don't know if you guys are following campus. You've heard about Fort Huachuca, and so this is very concerning, right? Because what it suggests is that we had foreign involvement in our elections, and there was help from within.
Laura,
Yes.
Fort Huachuca, I used to work for one of the Signal Solutions, one of the contractors there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, Fort Huachuca, because what they do is they have like old grocery stores set up where the contractors work out of with secret clearance. So we're talking secret and top secret clearance people if it's coming out of Fort Huachuca.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And they have access to the SIPRnet and NIPRnet in the military.
It's the enemy within helping the enemy from far away. So now there's active grand jury investigations going on right now, particularly in southern Florida. This has been going on since mid-January regarding Russiagate and the election space. So we anticipate there's going to be some action here going forward.
Really?
Yeah, Brennan.
You're more
Coney-
positive than I am.
Well, I mean, it does take time, but yeah, it has to. Listen, we're gonna lose our country if it doesn't. And then finally, this is most recent, the Texas Texas primary. Really odd thing happened. And this was in Bexar County, Texas, and I put out I don't know if you guys saw this on X, if you follow. I put out a video on this. I interviewed Dr. Doherty on this. It has over, I think, 150,000 views right now. What happened was, in Texas, they have a law where they have to post whoever showed up at the polls for that day of early voting, let's say, by a certain time. So you can know who showed up to the poll and who didn't to vote. And candidates use that because they use that to target who didn't show up so they can get them into the polls. So they apparently posted this a little early, and it was sent to the county GOP chair. The county GOP chair sent it to the precinct chair, who sent it, and that precinct chair happened to be the mother of the candidate, Weston Martinez, one of the candidates. She was looking at her own precinct and she said, well, this is really weird. It looks like the same guy came and voted multiple times in my precinct. And I don't like the looks of that. And so they sent it out to Dr. Doherty and some other analysts. And what they found And this is really kind of interesting. Let's see if I can laser it up here. I don't know if that laser works. Did you see it?
I saw it, so it's-
Oh, there it is. Okay, so you see Dennis so-and-so, they, obscured his name. His ID's over here, so that's actually correct ID, it's a round integer. These have decimals, these are all absolutely illegal. Okay? For Texas law. Look at the addresses, Dennis, same name, this is the same name. They slightly changed the address, 1162, 1163, 1164. And what's interesting about this, they found this in 735 names in this precinct out of 4,000. And it was just the A through C's. So they caught them Dr. Doherty calls it, they caught them in the middle of a bank heist. And I feel like this is the simplest way, like sometimes people show you charts and algorithms and crazy things to go, oh, look, they're stealing the vote. But I feel like this is so simple to show you what was going on here. What the heck? 735 names and multiples, yes, Angus.
Did he get busted? I mean, did they arrest that guy?
They've given it to, they don't know who's doing it, once again,
They're investigating.
they're investigating it.
Cause if I did that one time, I'd be in jail for 15
No,
years.
but it's not that guy, they're messing with, they cloned these people's names. And
Because the first
created,
one
But
is around.
who closed it?
we don't know, that's the thing. And this was an ESNS system, which we have, and Knowing poll books. So this was in the Knowing cloud.
So they're smarter than us.
This is what Julie says, they cheat at scale and they do it so insidiously that we can't see it necessarily, but we call it. So this is under investigation right now. So I'm just gonna give a brief overview of what we've been doing, because we've been so busy over the last 6 years, and we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of our own money, tens of thousands of hours of our own time, and across the state. And with a lot of help from a lot of people. So first we went and tried to get a forensic audit for 2020, of course, our General Assembly, no bueno. Then we said, okay, one of the legislators said, well, go out and canvass, find evidence of problems. So we did, we found over 11,000 affidavits of issues in our voting rolls. Here are just some of the binders, I had these sitting in my basement for a long time. I personally presented an executive summary to the top law enforcement officials of our state. And they all did this. Well, legislators, it's your problem. Hey, law officials, you gotta crack down. Oh, it was like that. Then I personally delivered the worst binders of all to SLED with a legislator. And what do you think happened? Does anyone guess?
No.
No rigorous investigation. And then they're, can we return those binders you gave us a year ago? Nothing.
Who was the legislator?
Vic Dabney. He went with me, and he's no longer. So then we said, okay, let's do some poll observation. Let's try to see if we can catch him in the act, see if there's anything going on, which is really kind of tough because it's a black box. But one of the things we did find that was significant, missing security seals. Now this is huge. You don't want a missing security seal on a nuclear reactor. You don't want a missing security seal on a piece of medical equipment or something like that. So this is, even in Lexington County, I went to 10 places and 4 out of the 10 had this problem. So over here is a correctly sealed machine. You see, up here, there's a seal over, oh shoot, let me just do that. Over here, there's a tape that goes over that little keyhole, and that's where the flash drive is that contains all of the votes. It's the flash drive with all the votes that are being tabulated from that tabulator. And then here are the doors that are sealed with the ballots, the physical ballots. So that is correctly sealed. If you look at this tabulator, there's no seals at all. Now, in some states, if you find tabulators like that, they stop the election right there and they have to redo it. And ours, they were like, oh, it's no big deal.
And
Who's
Laura,
responsible for that?
So that has to be seen.
Laura,
Yeah.
one of the problems is that in Greenville County, you're unable, like if you see a tabulator like that, you can't take a picture of it. You're not
I know,
allowed
you
to
can't even
your-
take a picture, they won't let you, and
And
that's
that's
even the law.
and that's our guy that runs elections right now that's getting the highest honor from the governor. So
It's-
just, I mean, think about
Once
that.
again, we have no transparency. I don't know if you guys realize this, but we can't see any of our ballots. We can't go to the logic and accuracy test and see the ballots from the logic and accuracy test, which are just fake ballots. When we go to the audits, we can't see the ballots there. What the heck? So this is why we wanted the cast vote record, and we spent almost over $80,000 trying to get a lawsuit to get these cast vote records. Why? Because it's a detail of your vote. When you go to the grocery store and they scan all the items, what do they give you? A detailed receipt with the total. When you have your bank statement, you get a detailed receipt with your total, all the transactions. What do you get from your vote? Just a total. Just a total. So here's an actual ballot, and at the top is a precinct, the top barcode's your precinct and your ballot style. Then all those other barcodes down there are who you voted for. That's what that tabulator is reading, not this. You read that, but we don't know what that's programmed to read. I don't know that the tabulator is switching every 5 votes, switch it to, from Laura to Julie.
Or what if it doesn't print the barcode properly?
What if it doesn't print the barcode properly? Exactly.
Flip it.
That would be a problem, and that's why you do the logic and accuracy tests, right? So, this is how Georgia found the problems, and I don't know how we're gonna do this, Julie. So I wanna kind of play this video, but, Georgia found, this is why Fulton County was rated. They had cast vote records, they had ballot images, so they could go and check, and they would run it through a computer program and find duplicates. And it would be a different tabulator, a different batch. But oh my gosh, look, it's the same exact ballot. So can you press that? Would that work?
It's not coming up in the video.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, yes, there it is.
Just gonna, you don't even have to really see the, hear it.
Here, I could read this.
You can see he's gonna say, it's the different batch numbers. But he's gonna compare one ballot to the next. And you can see that it has like the same squiggly lines. We can't get this in South Carolina. We can't get, see this squiggly line? It's the same ballot. Duplicate. Exactly the same people they voted. I don't think that's a unique ballot, that's a duplicate. Look, same writing. Same dot.
Yeah.
It's exact. And so this is how they were able to go in and multiple counties find these duplicate ballots, thousands of them. And this is why we asked to get the simple as that. That's all we needed to go find, was our election in South Carolina clean? And when I talked to Dr. Doherty, and I do encourage you to go to the most recent blog on our website, that interview with him, he said he looked into this in Pima County and he found issues all the way down the ballot. This is happening all the way down the ballot. The other thing that we do is we purchase voter rolls. We either crowdsource them sometimes. I know, Scott, you've helped us in the past, and sometimes I just write a check. And we analyze the voter rolls to find out if there are issues. And we're finding the same things they're finding in Minnesota and California. People who are registered and voting from stores. Now that no one lives in that, that's a store. A gas station, a church, post offices, FedEx, UPS, graveyards, empty lots, Dunkin' Donuts. We try to stop bad bills and we try to write and encourage good bills. And so here we are trying to get paper ballots, San Martin kind of paper ballots. All of us came down, And you know what they do? They're so slimy. They schedule it the last agenda item. And then they try to talk really long so that they make the time run out so you can't ever get to talk about your bill.
That's right, I was there too.
They play those games. And it's frustrating, but it's also, we just have to keep putting the pressure on them, but you know, it's very frustrating for sure. But we don't just complain, we wanna solve the problem. So about 2.5 years ago, we said, okay, we're gonna re-engineer the whole system. So we got together with other states. And I mean, months, we went to Florida. We did tests in Florida, we did tests in South Dakota, Minnesota, Pennsylvania. This was a test at my house. We all gathered at my house. And we did hand counting trials to optimize what's the best way to hand count that's quick, efficient, fun, and we had a good time. So the result is called the Gold Standard Elections White Paper, and this is actually going with Donald Trump. I was on Mary Fanning's, actually John Wells show, Arc to Midnight, and he heard me on that show. And the next day I was called up and he said, do you have a white paper? And I said, yeah. Okay, we need to get the boss the white paper. So this is going up to Donald Trump. And I actually helped draft an executive order to Trump that hopefully he will be bringing down soon with a number of people across the United States. This white paper looks at the whole process from start to finish: registration, voter validation, marking and counting, and recording. And it re-engineers it. It's about a 47-page paper. It's on our website. I encourage you to look at it, but it gets us back to the local level, and the whole goal of it is accessibility, transparency, security, and verifiability. If we don't have those 4 things, we don't have a good election, a safe election. So the white paper is 47 pages, but I'm going to summarize it here in a bunch of bullet points. So
What were those 4 months you just gave? I had
accessibility, transparency, security, verifiability. So here is the nut and bolts of the gold standard. Government issued photo ID required, no exceptions. Period. We must have photo ID. Only US citizens can register. And we must notify that they're citizens on their voter ID or their driver's license. Pre-printed, hand-marked paper ballots only. Ditch the machines, ditch the electronics, they cheated scale. Hand-counted ballots at the precinct level, no more vote centers. It just commingles the ballots, it makes it a lot tougher. We wanna have local neighborhoods, people you know, human eyes on every ballot. Paper poll books. A lot of these issues are happening in the poll books, and ES&S poll books, people don't know, they're not certified. They're not certified. No mass mail out ballots. What does that mean? A lot of states, not our state, mail out every registered voter ballot. Can you imagine the fraud that could occur from that? But it's absolutely important that we have the ability to do absentee for those who are ill, disabled, out of the country, out of the county. Small local precincts, we must keep our precincts to 1,500 or lower, or else we can't do hand counting. There's been this kind of push from the legislators to increase our precinct size, and we're seeing it. And we did an analysis of this, and about 40% of the precincts are well over the 1,500. They're just not keeping them small. So we need to keep them small. And we would like to go to one election day, or maybe if we go to the paper ballots, a couple of days, but make it a holiday so everybody can participate. And obviously there's gonna be some people that maybe they're working the polls, or they need to do absentee ballots, and that's fine. So that's the encapsulation of the gold standard. And this is gonna have to come out and I can't say this enough, it's gotta be a national emergency. The only way that Trump can get this through is to say, this is critical infrastructure, it's a national emergency. We were attacked, these are weapons of vote destruction, these machines. And we have to deal with it, we gotta go to hand count and march paper ballots, we gotta get rid of the electronics. So we believe that that's where he's heading. Ditch the machines, and this is all stuff that Julie has done, she went through this in her talk, so. Now, this is the fun part. We get to actually experience what would it be like to hand count and march paper ballots. And it's called the gold standard tally method. Now, a couple of you in this room have already participated in this. But I'm gonna break it down for you. And then I'm gonna count 50 ballots. I'm gonna call them out, and you have sheets in front of you, and there's pens. You should have a blue pen and a red pen. Everybody should have a blue pen and a red pen. And we're gonna try to do this, and we're gonna reconcile. And here's the deal, there's rules here. The rules are, you're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to fess up to your mistakes, that's how we learn. So if you don't reconcile, let us know, this is how we learn. So let's just step through this real quick. When we did our research, and we've done this hours and hours and hours, the counting is done one race at a time, not a ballot at a time, so much quicker. It's odd, and it's counterintuitive, but it's much quicker. 2 poll workers on one side review and call out the ballots, okay? They take turns calling out. Now, sometimes we find somebody likes calling out, and they're just good at it, so they continue to do it, but they can take turns. But the whole point is it's bipartisan, you see like the red person, the blue person. We count in batches of 25, we've also done 50. It really depends on, what you wanna do, but we're gonna do 25 today. And we switch pen colors between batches so that we can, discern between the 2 batches. So red, blue, we start with blue, red, 25, 25, 25. Now, if for some reason you don't reconcile, we count again, so we go back to the beginning, and then we make, let me just show this to you. Here's the tally sheet, it's in front of you. When the name is called out, you're gonna make a slash on the box. And the number, it's all consecutive, right? So this is a Supreme Court race, an actual race, and I have actual ballots I'm gonna be calling out. This is tally sheet. So in this particular tally sheet, you have Janet is running against Daniel. It's a 2-person race, make it simple. Then we have blank, so that's if someone did not vote at all for this race, that'd be an undervote. We have a write-in, if someone had a write-in. We have an overvote, that means you voted for 2 people, right? And then we have an empty blank. So I would call out the names, and you would agree ahead of time how you would call that name out. So I would say Janet, Daniel. You could say Janet, Dan. You could say Janet, Kelly. But you would agree, the whole group would agree what name, so you could clearly understand the names. So I would write out Janet, Daniel. I like to change the tone of the voice in between. So they go Janet, Daniel. So you have your brain knows to switch. Okay, it's just like little tips. Or pause, it also works. Now, if for some reason, see that we have the first batch in blue, the second batch in red, so you just count consecutively until you get to 130, and then you go to the next tally sheet. You just continue to use tally sheets.
When the first
now-
one hits 130,
What's that?
when the first one hits 100.
Yeah, or close to it, you could say, oh, we're getting to the end, let's start a new tally sheet.
Do you switch between blue and red when you're tallying? You
Each
know,
batch.
Oh,
each
the batch, so each one's a different batch.
Yep, 25.
Okay, and it
Batch
doesn't
25.
matter blue and red have no significance other than telling
New
us
batch
they
number.
died. Okay.
Yeah. So in this particular situation, they had to recount, see the red crosses?
Yeah.
So for some reason, they didn't reconcile, and that could happen today. So we recount. Now you make a cross. Okay? Now you make a cross. If for some reason you didn't reconcile a second time, you'd fill it in. That makes sense. Rarely happens.
Yeah.
So,
What about, Laura, what about cadence? Remember how when we did that? the
yeah, I'll go
test?
slow, but, what happens is over time, you just get into a rhythm, you find out what's appropriate, and what they can do is they can say, slow down.
Mhm, mhm.
Or you can go faster, so it's just that table has to, and what we're gonna do is I'll call them out first. And then what I'll do is I'll have some people come up to the front tables and we're gonna have you call and tell them. And so everybody's gonna have the opportunity to do it now. And then we'll have an opportunity to just do it in a separate, observe these tables calling them out, so. Let's see here, is everybody ready? Do you have your blue pen? We'll start with the blue pen. And it's the Supreme Court race, and I'm gonna be calling out either Janet or Daniel. So, I'm only gonna be doing, let's see, I'll start with. Okay. Let's just, maybe I'll do 10. Let's see.
And you just put a slash.
That's what's flash, yeah.
In which number box?
Well, you're gonna start with one, just do consecutively, right?
So each of us will be marking box number 1.
Yes, and so you should all have the same number at the end, so you're gonna check. You're gonna have a partner, and you're gonna check with your partner. Everybody's gonna have a partner, you're gonna check with your partner that you have the same number at the end, okay? We're gonna check.
So also, will you, when you call Janet or Daniel, will you call undervote right
Yeah,
in?
if there's one,
Okay,
absolutely.
got it, got it.
I don't think there are, but
Can you do example 5? I have no idea what.
sure, yeah.
Just a blank one or?
Yeah, so no one write anything down,
Okay,
just so
so
we can hear
I
you.
have no idea what.
you're just gonna put little dots there this time, like training wheels?
They don't understand the process.
Okay, so I'm gonna call a name, and when you hear the name, you're gonna do this.
You're gonna slash the one box, and then
Slash.
if they call that name again, you're gonna slash the 2 box.
Yes,
And then each time you hear that name, you just slash the next
Counting votes.
consecutive number
yeah,
box.
counting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, let's try it, let's do it, let's do it. Everybody ready?
Yes.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
good.
1, 2, 3. Janet. Daniel. Janet. Janet. Daniel. Daniel. Janet. 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 Now that's 10. Does everyone wanna just, what does everybody have for Janet?
7 and 3.
Yep. 7, 3.
7 for Janet and 3 for Daniel. Does anybody not have that?
See how accurate that is?
Okay, so everybody has that. Okay, so we're gonna continue with the blue. We're gonna continue with the blue because we're not quite to the 25 yet. So we're gonna see how you do. Okay. Everybody get it? Okay. Now we're starting with the next one. It's Janet. Janet. Daniel. Janet. 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 Daniel. Janet. Janet. Daniel. Janet. 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 Daniel. Jen? Okay, what does everybody have? That's the end of the 25th batch.
18 and 7.
Does anybody not have 18 and 7, because we can then try to reconcile with the farm? Come on, I know someone doesn't.
Yeah, I'll vote it,
Everybody has 18, 7. See, now see, no errors. Humans were supposed to make so many errors.
Everybody's gotta be the same, or you got to start over, or?
Well, if your partner, if you and your partner don't reconcile, then we would recount for just the two of you, and you would mark the boxes in the opposite way. So you go back and recount with the same pattern.
If I had made a mistake by not making a mark at all for one of them.
Yeah.
When I go to make the X, I'm gonna just,
That's right,
okay,
that's right.
makes sense.
Yep, yep. Okay, so do you wanna do 25 more?
Yes.
And then we'll come here and we'll do that, okay, we'll do the last batch of 25, and then we'll have people do it themselves and call into your tower, so I can save my voice. Okay, so everybody ready, now you have your red pens.
Red men start.
So you just, once again, continue right along. Everybody ready? Daniel. Janet. 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 Daniel. Janet, that's it.
3119.
Does anybody not have
19.
3119?
I screwed up.
Okay. That's good.
It's our next Arizona election guy. Arizona Secretary of State is calling you.
So that's good, no, that's good.
Got one.
So let's redo that, and now you're gonna go back and make an X over that with the red pen, so just those last 25, right? You just did 25.
So that's where you start, is your first X, that's why you do.
So you start at the 19 that I have.
Because now you start.
I mean, we'll go back over the,
Starting at 19 and 8.
yeah, because I was good up to 18 and
Yes.
and 7.
So we're starting off all the red. We're gonna recount the last 20.
So if you have to
Yeah,
move,
that's
then you
why
can mark
you
it to 18, and
That's
you
why
can
we
mark it to
alternate.
7,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna restart the red batch.
Do we use the same color?
Yes,
Yes.
now you're making an X the other way, now it's just
So
him,
what
you
you call it?
guys all got it right.
Yeah.
So, but, you guys are fine, it's just Scott.
So when-
Scott, okay.
Scott, so you're ready, Scott?
And you're a clerk, Scott, come on.
All right, it's all about me.
So we go,
No.
Daniel.
Hang on.
I'm he's
It's only me.
For the people who didn't do it right, we're redoing it, so now we're gonna do it like this. So, just that second 25, batches right, Daniel, Janet, Daniel, Janet, Daniel, Janet, Daniel, Janet. Daniel. 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 Janet. Janet. Now Scott.
Oh, God, I hope I got it right.
Yeah, me too.
3119.
Yes, that's
Oh, my God.
So, does somebody want to try it?
That was.
Being callers and talliers, we've
Yeah.
got 1, 2, 3, 4 tables here. You guys can just do it.
So
And just do your own thing.
Laura,
Yeah.
the difference was that was too fast for me. I mean, everyone else picked it up, but for some reason it was like at my limit.
And that's.
I'm slow.
Finding the next one that I've seen, getting it into a topic was a lot harder than looking for the next empty one and making part of it. So on the first, she could have. On the second, it's like she speaks that. Oh, it's just. I'm looking for the right place.
I didn't record it. This was created.
Well, I guess the other. The glue stops.
If you want to give us a call, 25,
If I started this next batch.
It wasn't, yeah, I will tell you.
I just there was one thing that said, Janet, looking for this house,
Can we go first?
Yeah.
I don't know about it, but I was able to.
Are you the only that you don't?
Yeah.
Get rid of the clothes and I'm paying for those.
What's happening is
Well, what's happening?
One person said.
Someone took right here.
That's okay. So, yeah, what I did is
So it's just right.
So I think we're done working.
Yeah.
All right.
We did.
So I'm gonna be calling out one of these two candidates.
Okay. So we just. Yeah.
That's what I'm waiting on.
I couldn't be more than 50 minutes. Plus, it's almost easier. No, they don't have. Well, I guess. You want some blue and red pen? Let me, Janet, I will reach
I'm just gonna give some action steps right now, so, yeah, if you all could pay attention up here.
This time.
Guys, we're talking.
Just some action steps to finish off. If you could call your senators, Graham and Scott, regarding the Save America Act, call your local senators and ask them to pass the South Carolina Save Act and the Gold Standard Elections Act. Now, we've already gone through crossover, but it can't hurt to call them and nudge them because eventually we gotta do something. Sign up to be a hand count volunteer on our website. There's a sign up thing right here. Spread this information. This is how we do what we do. Everybody just, it's word of mouth. We're just regular people. So try to spread the word. And this is the most important thing. Please encourage people to turn out for the primary. I know you guys know, get people. We only had about 13% turnout in our primaries last time. We're not gonna get good people across the finish line. You know, you can close the primaries all you want, but if you don't have turnout, that's what wins you these races. So get people to turn out. And then follow us on Telegram, Rumble, Substack, it's all on our website. But I wanna thank you for coming out, because you guys didn't have to come here today, but you chose to spend it with us, and we really do appreciate that. And I just wanna finish with my favorite Bible verse. It's so important to me. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. You know, there's a red pill and a blue pill. And those of us that take the red pill, we wake up, right? But it's not enough for us to just renew our mind, we have to act. And so I wanna ask you, what is the one thing you can do to act? One little thing, it could be a couple minutes a week, it could be a couple minutes a day, to change your world, your state, the state of our elections. Just ask yourself that. It's so important, because like I said, once again, the red pill is not just for us to renew our mind, we have to act on it. So thank you again. And I think
Yes, perfect. My name is Forrest. I'm with Ron Reddy's Campaign for Governor. I just want to stop by and invite you guys to our campaign kickoff this Monday at the Hotel Harkness. It'll be 6 to 8 p.m. Jeff also has the registration link if you guys would like that too. I can also send that to you as well. He's the only candidate running for governor that is not taking any money. Now, I don't think you understand how unprecedented it is. Like, I've worked a bunch of political campaigns. I worked for like Edwards campaign, for example. That guy's worth like $600 million. He took donations. So for Ron to not take donations really shows you how much he really believes in this and how much he wants to be a fighter for you and not really care about what these special interests are. So.
He in charge of the roads?
Yes, he was running.
What did they do?
do you know,